The floating island appeared suddenly in the sky above Black Hollow. At first, people thought it was a trick of the clouds or some bizarre weather phenomenon. But as days passed, it loomed larger and closer, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move against the natural flow of the sun. Two siblings, Nora and Caleb, couldn't resist the mystery. Armed with a drone and a harnessed curiosity, they decided to investigate. A local pilot, Oliver, agreed to fly them up, despite rumors of strange disappearances in the vicinity. As the small plane ascended toward the island, the air thickened with static. Shadows swirled unnaturally across the ground far below. When they broke through the cloud layer, the sight was breathtaking and terrifying. The island was massive, its surface covered in lush greenery and ancient ruins. Twisted, ivory towers rose above the forest, their surfaces etched with glowing runes that pulsed faintly. A waterfall flowed endlessly over the edge, its source untraceable. But most unnerving was the sound, a low, resonant hum, like a million whispered voices overlapping. The plane's engine sputtered. "Something's pulling us in," Oliver yelled as the aircraft trembled. With no choice, he made an emergency landing on the grassy plateau. The air was thick, laden with the scent of damp moss and something metallic. Nora, Caleb, and Oliver stepped cautiously onto the spongy terrain. The hum grew louder, vibrating in their bones. Nora spotted a rusted sign near the landing site, half buried in the earth. Brushing away dirt, she read aloud, "Experiment 426 Temporal Nexus Stabilization." "What does that mean?" Caleb asked, unease creeping into his voice. Before Nora could respond, a sudden shift in the landscape made them all freeze. The grass moved not with the wind, but as if alive, rippling like waves. "That's not right," Oliver muttered, clutching his compass, which spun wildly as they ventured deeper. The ruins became more intricate, the glowing runes now pulsing faster, almost alive. They stumbled upon a massive stone door, etched with a symbol, a single eye, wide and watching. It opened with a groan as they approached, as though sensing their presence. Inside was a cavernous hall, its walls lined with mirrors that didn't reflect them. Instead, they showed distorted versions of the trio, trapped in strange, shadowy landscapes. Caleb screamed as his reflection grinned back at him, lips curling impossibly wide. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and the mirrors cracked in unison. From the fractures emerged shadowy figures, their forms flickering like static on a broken screen. They whispered in voices that overlapped, words unintelligible yet filled with malice. "Run," Oliver shouted, dragging Nora and Caleb toward an exit that wasn't there moments ago. The trio emerged into a labyrinth of overgrown pathways. The sky above had darkened to a swirling vortex, and the hum now sounded like a scream. As they ran, the shadows pursued, taking the shape of grotesque creatures' elongated limbs, eyeless faces, and gaping mouths that emitted an ear-splitting wail. In the chaos, Caleb tripped and fell. A shadow loomed over him, reaching with claw-like appendages. Nora turned back, brandishing a broken branch like a weapon. "Leave him alone," she screamed. To her surprise, the shadow recoiled, hissing. The runes on the branch glowed faintly, as though the island itself was fighting back. With the shadows temporarily repelled by the glowing branch, the trio stumbled upon a stone bridge that spanned a chasm filled with swirling mist. On the far side, they found a forgotten shrine carved into the cliffside. It was marked with the same eye symbol they had seen before, now glowing faintly in the dim light. Inside the shrine, they discovered an ancient mural depicting the history of the floating island. It showed a civilization that had harnessed the crystal's power to bend time and space. The people in the mural, however, gradually warped into monstrous shapes as they became consumed by their own creation. Nora traced her fingers over the murals. Final panel, a depiction of the crystal shattering, releasing shadows into the air. "This place isn't just a nexus of power," she said. It's a prison. A sudden gust of wind extinguished their flashlight. When Oliver relit it, the mural had changed. The figures now seemed to stare directly at them, their eyes glowing with malevolence. "Time's running out," Oliver muttered. "We need to destroy the heart before this place traps us too." Their path led them to a towering observatory at the island's highest point. The structure was ancient yet oddly pristine, as if untouched by the decay surrounding it. A spiral staircase wound upward, disappearing into shadows as they ascended. The air grew colder, and their movements felt sluggish, as though time itself resisted them. Caleb, who had been trailing behind, suddenly froze. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. The others listened, and faintly they heard it whispers, layered upon whispers, growing louder with each step. When they reached the top, they found a massive telescope aimed at the vortex in the sky. Through the lens, they could see swirling figures, ghostly remnants of the island's lost inhabitants, trapped in endless torment. Before they could react, the vortex seemed to pulse, and an otherworldly force pulled them toward the telescope. Nora grabbed hold of a nearby console, her fingers brushing against a series of glowing runes. "Activate it," Caleb yelled. Nora hesitated, but pressed the largest rune. The observatory shuddered, and beams of light shot from the telescope into the vortex, momentarily disrupting its swirling motion. The shadows in the vortex screamed as though in agony, retreating slightly. "It's connected to the crystal," Oliver realized. "This thing is their prison gate." The island trembled violently as they descended back to the crystal's chamber. The once dormant runes along the walls now blazed with light, and the air crackled with energy. Shadows clawed at the trio from every direction, their distorted faces flickering with rage. Reaching the crystal, they realized it had changed. Fractures marred its surface, and within its glowing core, they could see the faint outlines of the shadowy figures, dozens of them, clawing and writhing to escape. Oliver knelt by the skeletal remains of a previous explorer and found a weathered journal. Flipping through its pages, he found a passage written in frantic scrawl. "The crystal binds them, but it demands a soul to maintain the seal." "What does that mean?" Caleb asked. "It means one of us has to stay," Oliver said grimly. "No," Nora protested. "There has to be another way." But before they could argue further, the shadows surged, swarming over Caleb and dragging him toward the crystal. He screamed as he fought against their grasp. Nora, acting on instinct, thrust the glowing branch toward the crystal's core. The moment it touched, the entire island shook with a deafening roar. The shadows recoiled, writhing in agony. The crystal's light intensified, and for a brief moment, the shadows vanished. But the island began to collapse, pieces breaking away and falling into the void. Oliver grabbed Caleb, pulling him free. "Go," he shouted to Nora. "There's no time." The trio sprinted toward the plain, dodging falling debris and cracks that split the ground beneath their feet. The hum reached a crescendo, almost unbearable. As they took off, the island crumbled entirely, sucked into the vortex. For a brief moment, the vortex pulsed, then collapsed in on itself, leaving the sky clear and eerily silent. The trio sat in the cockpit, breathless and shaken. Below them, Black Hollow seemed so small, so far away. Back on solid ground, they thought the nightmare was over. But in the days that followed, Nora began hearing faint whispers at night. Oliver's compass refused to point north, spinning erratically, and Caleb awoke every morning with the sensation of cold, claw-like fingers brushing his skin. One evening, as the sun set, a faint glow appeared on the horizon, reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be fully closed.
Thanks for watching video, and please subscribe my channel.